So with Hogwarts Legacy bringing back the Harry Potter series to the world of video games, I think I've finally found a proper motivation to talk about the early Harry Potter games that shaped my childhood. I'm seriously not exaggerating when I say that I've played these games an ungodly amount of times, and I'm so glad that I finally get to talk about them. Anyways, let's take these one game at a time, starting with the first one I ever played. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is an action-adventure platformer on the PS1 published by EA, but developed by Argonaut Games. And yeah, the same Argonaut Games that made the original Star Fox on the Super Nintendo and Croc on the PS1. I know this game was released on practically everything at the time, with every port being incredibly different. I mean, the Game Boy Color had a turn-based RPG, the Game Boy Advance had this top-down puzzle game. The PC had this third-person action puzzle game that seems to be the most popular version from what I've noticed, but I've never played it. And obviously there's a PS1 version, which is the only one I've played as of now. The game loosely follows the plot of the first movie, with a storybook narration explaining Harry's backstory. When we arrive at Hogwarts, we are greeted by the headmaster, Albus Dumbledore, who encourages us to explore the school. But then he says this.
Which reminds me, the third floor corridor is out of bounds to everyone who does not wish to suffer a most painful death.
After this, we follow Ron into a room, which is where we meet the one and only Draco Malfoy. The game's controls are very Zelda-like, with Harry being able to climb ledges by walking up to them, but only being able to jump and running off of them. Combat-wise, you can cast Flipendo by pressing X, or
press the cross button to cast the Flipendo knockback jinx from your wand.
And you can even Z-target like in Zelda by pressing R1. You can also go into first person by pressing triangle, but I don't remember ever using that aside for specific secret areas. Oh, and what's super neat is how your health is displayed by a bar in the shape of Harry's scar. Anyways, the tutorial keeps rolling on with learning how to cast spells. There's a couple of spells you'll learn throughout the game, but they're all context sensitive. There's no real thinking involved with having to figure out what spell to cast. If you see a yellow star above an item, all you gotta do is press X and it'll cast a spell for you. I mean, you don't even have to look for the item to charm. It's usually the only object in the room. It's practically impossible to miss. Speaking of which, this game seriously holds your hand. I mean, it always makes sure that you never wander off the assigned path. For example, after learning Wingardium Leviosa, we get a letter from Hagrid telling us to meet him on the castle grounds. But if you want to do some exploring before leaving the castle, then you're out of luck because most of the doors are going to be locked with only a secret or two to find. To be fair, this is something that I remember getting improved in later games, so I guess I'll let it slide for now. Before we go any further, I think it's time to address the elephant in the room. These graphics have not aged well at all. What are these character models? Most people only know of this game because the Hagrid model became a meme online. But even though the characters look so bad, I still think these are some of the best looking environments on the PS1. Ooh, and don't even get me started on the soundtrack. It may not be John Williams, but this soundtrack absolutely still slaps, and it's what's been playing in the background this whole time. Anyways, going back to the story. We get into our first boss fight against Draco Malfoy, who'll prevent us from leaving the castle and proceed to throw his
wizard crackers.
It's a pretty simple boss fight, honestly. All you gotta do is throw the wizard crackers back at him, with Crabbe and Goyle joining the fight as it goes on. With Malfoy taken care of, we can finally go outside to meet our favorite PS1 model. From here, we can somewhat explore the outside of the castle and look for secrets. Something I forgot to mention up to this point is that you're going to be collecting two things while exploring. The first is famous Witches and Wizards cards, which have a total of 17 hidden throughout the game. And the second are Bertie Bott's beans, which are tasked to collect by Fred and George. These beans have different colors and can only be found in certain areas of the castle. After collecting enough of them, you're rewarded with upgrades such as stronger spells or stronger equipment for Quidditch. Speaking of which, remember the scene in the movie where Malfoy steals Neville's Rememberall and Harry gets on a broom for the first time to get it back? Well, they included that in the game, but here we get to beat the shit out of Malfoy. What's even funnier is that Professor McGonagall straight up forces us to join the Quidditch team and play a match for them immediately. Quidditch isn't anything too special. All you gotta do is fly through rings against somebody that nobody likes.
Here comes the Hufflepuff Seeker!
I guess everyone in the crowd is a Gryffindor. The most memorable part of the game for me is in the dungeons. During potions class, Professor Snape will ask us to fetch a jar of fireflies from the back, but when we do, we get fucking jumped by Voldemort, which leads us to a lower level of the dungeon. This area used to straight up terrify me as a kid for one reason and one reason only. To escape the dungeon, you have to get a key from a sleeping troll without waking him up. If it sounds straightforward, well, that's because it is. But the combination of the music plus the atmosphere really made my younger self feel a type of fear that I have not felt since. After returning from the depths of hell, the castle opens up slightly more, allowing for a couple of side activities. Most of them are mediocre minigames, but there's a couple worth mentioning. For example, there's one where you go into first person mode to shoot random items like some sort of carnival game. There's another one where you gotta cast Wingardium Leviosa on a kitten to rescue it from a well. There's a side quest you can do which has its own dungeon and requires you to find and destroy these 4 evil eyes. What's cool is that this is where we're first introduced to my favorite character, Peeves. He's the mischievous ghost who was featured in the books but never in the live action movies.
Young Potter, you're ugly, but what can we do? Everyone says you belong in a zoo. If you look in a mirror, it surely will crack. The best thing to do is wear a nice sack.
I'm not sure why, but I always really liked his adaptation in the games. By the way, can you tell that I've never read the books before? There's also this detail that I noticed during this playthrough, but you can see Voldemort watching you from the shadows, which makes me wonder if this happens in any other parts of the game as well. Halfway through the game, you kinda get bombarded by completely different gameplay segments. For example, after unlocking the upper part of the castle, we have to beat Peeves in a race in order to get the invisibility cloak. Then after getting the invisibility cloak, we have to use it to get past Filch and his cat through the forbidden corridor without getting caught. Immediately after that, we get chased by a troll through a very long hallway that leads specifically into the girls' bathroom.
Are you alright, Hermione?
And after dealing with all of that, poor Harry Potter is dragged into a damned Quidditch match without time to frickin' breathe. Okay, we got the snitch, won the game, and can now— oh, come on, what now? Hagrid dragged us out to Diagon Alley and forces us to do his fucking groceries. But not only that, he makes us take money out of our own accounts to buy his items. But before we buy anything, we have to withdraw our money from Gringotts Bank, which in itself is a whole process. This was before ATMs, so before we can get our money, we have to collect the appropriate forms by running around the bank on their time limit while slipping and sliding because of the damn wax floors. Once that's done, we go on a minecart ride collecting the coins themselves. Here we have to collect coins while avoiding obstacles. Well, that was easy enough. Time to do it again? Yep, turns out we have to do this process 3 separate times in order to have enough money for Hagrid's sex toys. I've played this game lots and lots of times and I always have trouble with the 3rd minecart stage. Usually takes me 2 or 3 tries, but even then I pass with barely enough coins. Now that we have enough money, it's time to go shopping. First, we'll buy some warts. But the lady won't sell them to us unless we find her toad. So we destroy her entire inventory and beat up her toad. Next item. Here we're trying to buy an eagle owl feather. This one's pretty straightforward. We just gotta feed the owl some peanuts. Easy peasy. Last item is some peacock feathers, and this one was fucking infuriating. To get the feathers, you have to pluck them yourself from the bird, which is near impossible. If you even get slightly close to it, it'll start running away, so you have to keep up. There's no trick to this, you just have to keep running next to it while the bar fills up. There's an invisibility cloak that doesn't do jack. The bird will immediately start sprinting if you sneak up to it. After like an hour of trying, I was somehow able to do it with pure luck. Now that we got all of Hagrid's items, what's our reward? We get punished for helping this bag of polygons. Harry and company get sent to the Forbidden Forest at night to find the wounded unicorn. You know how in the movie Harry goes with Malfoy and Fang? Well, in this one, Hagrid just dumps us in the middle of the woods and dips. First thing that I notice is how this looks nothing like the Forbidden Forest. I don't mean to brag, but I've been there myself, and I didn't see any 2D trees. Besides that, there isn't much to mention, except for the shitting turtles. Oh yeah, and check out this magnificent PS1 cutscene. For reasons that I can't remember, it's time to venture through a series of challenges to find the sorcerer, the Philosopher's Stone. First off, we have to put Fluffy to sleep with a relaxing tune. Next up is a Devil's Snare, and thankfully I'm not alone this time. Come on team, let's do this! Next up is Quidditch, but with a key, and it's as much fun as it looks. Up next is Wizard Chess. This will test my intelligence as well as my problem solving skills.
And the next one is there, left, right, diagonal. Oh!
Next up, we have to clear a path for this troll that is sleepwalking. It's not hard, but it was really tense. It felt like I was barely moving the objects out of the way in time. Oh yeah, and this happened to me.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Our last challenge has us fighting a couple of possessed knights. Even though the combat is simple as balls, it makes up for it with its visuals. After defeating a wave of knights, a giant knight will appear which tilts the camera in order to make the fight seem more grand. Our adventure concludes with a fight against Voldemort. The fight has 3 phases. In the first phase, we just have to drop some columns on him while trying not to get too close. In the second phase, we have to use a mirror in the middle to amplify our spells. After enough damage, Voldemort will break his restraining order and start grabbing Harry. In this phase, we have to spam square and sometimes X while we wait for the cops to arrive. And boom! We beat the game. So after replaying this childhood classic of mine, do I still think it holds up? Honestly, yes. Don't get me wrong, the game still has its flaws between its super simple combat, the gross looking characters, and its linear exploration, but I'm able to look past it. It's probably just nostalgia, but I feel like this game had some care put into it when compared to other movie tie-ins. The same type of care that has me excited for the future of Harry Potter games. Let's hope that I'm right about that.